Sagittarius, I'm Ellie with PsychicFuture.com and this is your horoscope from the 2nd to the 8th of July. So you might have noticed that this week I'm inside, and that is because it is absolutely pouring with rain outside, and it has been for days. But this is actually very reflective of what's going on in the stars right now, because we've got a lot of inner work to get through. So in particular, what's happening is we've got Chiron, the wounded healer, is stationing retrograde. So what I mean by the wounded healer is that Chiron represents the points in our lives where we've been the most hurt that still continue to affect us. Perhaps we don't even know why or we don't know how, but it makes us do certain things or behave in certain ways as we get older. So for you this week, it's quite important for you to set aside a little bit of time to think about when in your past, maybe in your childhood, you felt like you didn't have any freedom. So for example, this might be as a child, you wanted to go out and play with your friends and your parents said no, or perhaps you grew up in a household that was a little bit stifling and there were some problems and that made you feel like you didn't have any freedom, because as a child, what can you really do? You can't go anywhere, you can't get away from it. So is there anything like that that is perhaps making you feel like you had a lack of freedom? Or perhaps as you got a little bit older, there was relationships that made you feel stuck. Maybe that you had lots of arguments with a certain relationship, or perhaps you were even with somebody who was quite controlling, or perhaps it's just a feeling of being stuck in work, not being able to do the job that you want to do. Like what are the pinpoint the places in your life, the events that have affected you now that made you feel like you didn't have any personal freedom and you didn't have any other options apart from to stick with what was going on. So actually, when we do this, when we start to acknowledge these events in our lives, that triggers the healing by itself, and we don't need to do anything else apart from just figure out what it is, and then maybe even write it down if you need to, but just figure out like these are the times that made me feel like I didn't have any freedom. And then what that does is it starts to trigger this healing process, and then what we have is the flip side of things, which is the healer. So if you've worked out where you are wounded, you can then go about helping other people with the same problem. So perhaps this week try and give other people the freedom that you want. So maybe if you're in a relationship and you are prone to kind of demanding attention from that person, or perhaps just wanting to do things your way, then maybe try and take a little step back this week and say, okay, I'll give you your freedom and I'll take my freedom just for a week and see how that feels. Or perhaps it might be at work that somebody, if you're a boss, maybe you need to give that person, the person beneath you, a little bit of free rein. Or if you're not the boss, maybe you need to kind of just get on with your own things for a little bit. Maybe it can even be something like, giving advice to people. Like essentially, when we give advice to people, it is meant to be a helpful thing, and we do it out of kindness. But then what we're doing is we are taking away their freedom to decide what they're going to do. So if you can this week, just try and think about freedom as a concept and think about where you haven't had it and how you can go about giving it to other people. So, and in turn, these two things will actually help you to become a little bit more whole and to heal and to feel more confident and to feel more free, because essentially freedom is a concept, it's a decision, So if you choose to be free and to not let your past events affect you and to help other people with that freedom, then that will make you feel a lot happier and a lot more free, if that's what you really want. So I hope that you do well with this, and good luck with all the digging. It might be a little bit iffy, a little bit painful, but it is worth it, I promise. And if you like this video, then please don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I hope to see you next week. Much love.